Hi everyone, welcome to the Laser channel where we learn, create, and share. My name is Greg, and this video is going to be all about the QIDI Tech X Max 3. Welcome back, and thanks for checking out this video on the Laser channel. I'm fortunate enough to get my hands on one of these QIDI Tech X Max 3 3D printers. Now in the first scene, the opening scene, I was sitting in front of the machine because this thing is just so absolutely massive. I mean, when I try and bear hug this thing, I can't even anywhere near get my arms wrapped all the way around it. This machine really is that big. In this video, I'm going to be sharing an in-depth and personal look with you viewers on some of the nice key unique features on this machine. I also encourage you to check out the manufacturer's website on this, and I'll have a link to that in the video description down below. I'm going to start out by reviewing some of the really unique, fun features about this machine. At the very end of the video, I am going to show you the test print of the tugboat with this printer. I'm going to start that portion of the video out at regular speed so that you can really see just how fast this machine really is. But then I'm going to go into a time lapse, and I'll let you know in that part of the video what's playing at real speed versus the time lapse. Now let's jump into the features of this X Max 3. This is the top tier machine out of the family of the X Max 3, the X Plus 3, and the X Smart 3. So this has the largest build volume out of all three of those models. This video is currently being recorded around the holiday season, and right now this machine can be purchased for just under $900 US, which I think is a phenomenal price for the size of the machine and the speed that this thing can build prints with. Next to the fantastic price on this machine is the build volume, and this comes in at 325 by 325 by 315 millimeters. When we do the conversion on that, that is 12.8 inches by 12.8 inches by 12.4 inches. XYZ perspective on that. So absolutely a huge build volume on this, and it's going to really open up a lot of new print possibilities that I didn't have with some of my other smaller printers. Let's take a look at just really what that build volume looks like, along with some of the key elements that are located inside of that build chamber. And here we'll go on a little tour on the inside of the machine. And again, the build volume on this is absolutely huge. For a size comparison, here is the Benchy Tug Boat test print. And here's my hand reaching all the way inside. I'm reaching all the way to the back, and we'll see that my elbow is just inside of the machine. And I put my forearm across the front here. It really is that big. So pretty interesting measuring here. So I can talk about inches and millimeters, but when we actually get up close to this machine, this is why I'm making the video so that you have a really good visual on just the overall size build volume of this print area. The X Max 3 does include two hot heads, and the one that comes installed on the machine is a copper alloy. And this is going to be perfect for PLA and ABS printing. The other hothead has a hardened steel nozzle on it for abrasive materials like glass-filled filaments and carbon fiber-filled filaments. Moving back over to the build chamber, this chamber is temperature controlled, and this can be heated up to 65 degrees Celsius. When we take a look in the back corner here, we're going to see that there is a fan right there, and in front of it is the heater element. And when the temperature is good, there is another fan back behind here. I am going to touch base on that in just a second. Moving on, here is one of the exhaust fans on the side here, and this is a very large diameter fan. Moves a lot of air to keep this build area very stable. Looping back to the corner here again, this houses the activated carbon. There's a little slide cover off the top. That cover comes off very easily. And inside of this sealed pouch is the activated carbon. Now, I don't have mine placed in there just yet because I'm going to be starting out with PLA filament, and I just don't need to use this activated carbon just yet, but wanted to share with you, it does have a nice filter that comes with the machine. Next, I'm going to show you a view from the back side of the machine, and this is where the dryer box for the filament is located. The dryer box attaches to the back of the machine. I think that is really convenient. There's a nice access cover here to the filament. It's held on with 4 of these tabs here. I'll remove each of those tabs. We'll take a look inside here. The roll that I have installed right now is the half spool sample of PLA filament that is included with the machine. If we take a look down here, we'll see that there's a little pocket, and that is for the included desiccant to keep your filaments that are water soluble dry. We'll see here that this is what is included. This gets poured again down into that little area. And I'm using PLA filament, so right now I don't need to use this just yet, but it's nice to know that QIDI Tech includes this with the machine to get you up and running right away. In just a minute, I'm going to dive back into that build chamber because there's just a lot of really neat things in there. Before I do that though, I do want to show you the rest of the accessories that come with this machine. Here's everything that is also included with the QIDI Tech X Max 3. We'll go round robin here, starting out with the customary quick start guide, a stick of chapstick. Now this is just some stick glue for treating the bed for different types of filaments. I found on PLA I didn't need to use that. I used it on some other builds, but have gotten away from that. The X Max 3 does have an Ethernet port on it, and it does include a cable to go with that. There's also a set of 4 feet. These don't actually attach to the 3D printer. More, the 3D printer just sits on top of that. The feet that are on the machine are cone-shaped, and it fits perfectly into here, making sure that the 3D printer has a nice, good purchase on your workstation as this thing is zipping along at high speed. There's also a nice screwdriver that comes with the machine. And speaking of some tools, there's some nice Allen wrenches, a nice wrench, some extra screws, a fuse, and then here's the 4 screws that were removed during the unpackaging and deboxing of the machine. There's also this calibration card that is used for setting the gap between the hothead and the build table. A nice putty knife for scraping off anything still stuck to the build platter. And this putty knife is really nice because the edge along the front here is rounded just enough not to mark your build platter. And even the corners here and here are also rounded so that when you're using that inside of the machine here, it's definitely not going to leave any scratches on this valuable build plate. And lastly, there is a USB drive that is included with the machine. And this is going to be a great segue on the 3 ways to get models inside of the machine to start printing. We just saw that we can use that USB drive. This does have Wi-Fi 2.4 gigahertz conductivity. And again, you can also directly connect your computer up using the Ethernet cable. Oh, I almost forgot what's inside of this tube here, and I'm not sure if you can see it with all the glare off of the camera, but there is a very thin metal rod that's inside of there, and that is to clear out any jams that you might have on a hothead nozzle. So what's underneath this beautiful case that gets this machine to print so smoothly at incredible speeds? For that, I'm going to turn to a cheat sheet to make sure I get everything correct. And at the core of everything is a Cortex A53 64-bit processor running at 1.5 gigahertz. It's also utilizing 8 gigabytes of eMMC memory along with 1 gigabyte of DDR3 memory. Now, what does all of that mean? That means you can send some very large models out to this printer and it's not going to have a problem with it. And while it's printing, it's going to maintain its high speed and not have to pause to think about or process some of the next layers that it needs to print out. Some of the other printers that I've looked at that have a weaker processor and not a whole lot of memory, it's actually really amazing to watch that hothead. It will pause in some areas while it has to process through the next build layers. And I've built a couple of things on a QIDI Tech machine and they just fly through the models. There's no pausing or thinking about what it needs to do next. So that's one of the key features that makes this a really nice performing machine. For the next areas, you guessed it, we're going to jump back inside the build chamber. We're going to point out some really cool things. Next, I'm going to take a look at the CoreXY system, and that's really the build structure that is utilized on this platform of machine. And really what that means is the movement of the machine, it will reach speeds of up to 600 millimeters per second. And the acceleration rate that this can achieve is 20,000 millimeters per second squared. Now, this is a number that we may not always think about, but that acceleration rate is what this machine is going to use between white space areas or in areas where it's not printing any filament. And when we do a print, that's usually the bulk of the time that the machine is doing is it's moving without printing filament. And the faster that you can accelerate or jump over those areas to keep printing, the faster the build times will be. So this is incredible. And again, at the end of the video, I'm going to show you the start of that Benchy Tug Boat test print. I'm going to show that in real time. And it's just incredible how fast this machine really does fly. When I take a look at the build plate here, I'm actually going to remove the build plate out so that we can look at the heated bed here. We'll see the edge of the aluminum here. This aluminum is going to be 6 millimeters thick, and it's going to act as a great heat reservoir when we have this bed heated up. It's also going to make sure that the temperatures are even and uniform all the way across this huge build area. Part of getting really great prints to turn out on this QIDI Tech machine is the auto leveling. Now, when I first started looking at 3D printers, I thought it was auto leveling off of the lead screws off of the side here. And really what it is it's measuring the flatness of the bed here with this little sensor that is off to the side of the hothead. And what that is going to do is it's going to record and document, even though this looks flat, one corner might be dipped down a little bit, another corner back there might be a little bit high. And this sensor measures that, maps it out, and as it's printing each layer, it takes all of that into account and makes sure that the hothead is following nice and flat on each of the build layers. Here's some of the things that I've made using my other QIDI Tech machine, the X Mark III. This little Benchy boat here, of course, was made on the X Max 3. And this brings up a really good segue into filaments. I found my best and fastest build speeds have been using the QIDI Tech brand filaments. This black Rapido filament builds at 100% speed, and the layer buildup on here is very smooth. I can use aftermarket filaments, but I find for best success, I run at about 50 to 60% speed. So a big reduction in speed to maintain the same quality that I would have with the QIDI Tech Rapido filament. There is definitely a lot of thought and a lot of innovation that has gone into the manufacturing of this machine. I'm going to leave off with just a couple fun little facts about this machine. The first one being this machine weighs in at over 30 kilograms. For those of us in America, that's going to be just over 66 pounds. QIDI Tech is running Clipper firmware on this machine, which allows users to write their own firmware to modify how this machine runs. Now, this area of operation isn't for me, and that's an area that I'm not comfortable with, but there's a lot of really smart women and men out there that can program these to really push the envelope of what these 3D printers can operate. One of the other areas that really makes this machine enjoyable to run is the full 5-inch color display. This is an 800 by 480 resolution display. It's very responsive, and the layout and the controls are very intuitive. It was very quick for me to learn where everything was located on the machine. I hope that you enjoyed this nice guided tour of the QIDI Tech X Max 3. If you did, please consider giving this video a like, subscribing to the channel, or ringing that notification bell. That way you'll know the next time a great video like this comes out. The next video that I have planned is to have both the X Max 3 and the X Smart 3 on the table, and we can do a side-by-side comparison and then kind of review what machine would be best suited for you and your application.